Greetings. Welcome to the Wrebbit Peace Tower Paper Clock update. I have totally lost track, but it's about time I go over some of the new features of this clock before I get too far ahead of myself. Number one is I finished these replacement gears. The reason I made those is because I switched out the entire escapement mechanism back here with something totally different. Originally I had a gravity style escapement that was 10 RPMs. And because the weight was dropping so fast, I'd have to hang the clock 60 feet in the air to get 24 hours of runtime in between the windings. So I switched out the escapement with this one. And when I did that, I knew I had to switch out some of these gears further down the train, the powertrain, in order to make the clock run at the right speed. These gears are fantastic, and they work great, these wooden ones here. But after I got far enough along, I started working on the face, and I realized something. I had assumed that 30 teeth on this escape gear meant 30 seconds per rotation, meaning 2 RPM. I was wrong. Each tooth counts for 2 seconds because of the way the anchor engages and clicks off. So that's actually 1 RPM. So these 2 wooden gears on the front are wrong, and the clock runs at half speed, which is great if I want a 24-hour clock, but I want to make it a regular clock, so I need to switch out these gears. So I started working on 2 new gears to replace those. If you go with a 30-tooth escapement up here, then the correct gear ratio here is 9 to 10. 9 to 10, so these gears are going to be very similar in size. Great big jumbo teeth. You could double the amount of teeth on each gear, keep the same ratio, and have smaller teeth, but I like the big chunky teeth. They're easy to cut out on a scroll saw by hand. So I've got to replace those gears. Maybe I can use these 2 somewhere else on a different clock. But let's go over some of the additions and improvements I've made. Aside from getting all of the gears done-ish and getting ready to work on the last step, which is the face, it slots in these holes here. Very beautiful face. I'm looking forward to building it. The weight I have settled on is 2.5 pounds, and I made a little thing out of wood so that I can, instead of hooking the hook right to the weight, I've actually wrapped it back up around and doubled it, and then made a little thing that hangs off the bottom of the clock to slot the hook into. And what this will do is it'll give me double the runtime. It effectively cuts the weight in half, whatever you put on there, but it will drop half as fast. So I figured out if I hang this clock like 1 or 2 feet higher, then I will easily get 24 hours in one winding, which is my goal. Another thing I did was I replaced every single bearing with actual steel shielded ball bearings. Super proud of them. I spent a little too much money on them, but I like them. They're good. There's another one. Steel shielded ball bearings. 2.5 millimeters inner diameter, 8 millimeters outer diameter, 4 millimeters thick. Fits perfectly in the clock. Oh, what else? What else? As you can see, to get all those bearings in there, I had to break a few of the pieces of the frame and then glue them back together with like a glue band-aid piece of paper. But all that'll be covered up by the face. It won't matter. I had a lot of trouble getting these gears to be perfectly vertical so that they don't touch, like right there between these two. Whenever you put weight on it and it pulls down on the front of the frame, it has a tendency to make this gear go from vertical to kind of slanted. And when it does that, it'll rub against the big gear. So it's all about getting the right number of bushings and washers and stuff back there to keep the gear perfectly in the right place. So that took a lot of experimenting to get the right number of washers on the axle so that the gears don't touch each other. But I've got it. I finally got it. Another thing I did was, instead of using the metal rods that the kit includes for axles, the only place I've used the metal rod is here. And I actually glued it to the inside of the bearing on the front and the back. And what that will do is it'll keep the clock, the bottom of the base in compression and hold it out a little bit, which makes the action where this gear kind of slants less so. It will reduce that by actually gluing this axle in place in the front and the back. The rest of them, I've replaced all the axles with this wood axle, just slightly larger than the metal ones that came with it. I got them in the craft section at Walmart. The reason I did that is because they fit tightly in the bearings. I can still pull them out with a pair of pliers, but I don't have to glue them in place. So if I need to make changes or adjustments, it's real simple to just pull that axle out. But it won't come out on its own. It won't slide back and forth on its own. So I'm really happy with that. My clock's working great. It's been running for days without any problems. I just need to finish the face and replace these two gears so that it can run at the right time. More good news. I did my math again and made sure I got it right this time. If I make this escapement run at exactly 1 RPM, that is exactly 1 second swings on the pendulum, then the ratio worked out to nice whole numbers of teeth, which is 9 to 10, which is not something that we had with this setup or the original gearing ratios. You would not have a perfect whole number of teeth, and so they had to settle with what was closest, which then ended up with a pendulum that is less than a second of swing. So I may have to lengthen the pendulum a little bit. I'm okay with that to get exactly 1 second out of the pendulum. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. I think this clock is going to turn out pretty good despite all the problems I've had with it. I think I have about 200 hours in here now, but if I had to do it again, I'm sure I could cut that in half. Just because of all the things I've learned, I would do it right the first time. I do have all of the templates for the additions and improvements that I made. I have a template for that escapement, and I will have templates for these gears. Once I've proven that they work, I will include them as a link at the bottom of one of these videos, or maybe all of them. That way, if you're building this clock and you'd rather use my adjustments rather than the original escapement and original gears, you can get more runtime out of your clock. And I don't know, do you think I should paint that gear? Is the mixed media look okay? Or is wood going to be a problem there? I don't know. Anyway, I'm looking forward to my next clock. I really am. I just want to be done with this one, because the next clock I build, I'm going to design myself and cut it almost entirely out of wood. No more paper. These paper tubes make the whole process take so much longer than it needs to. I could have cut this frame out of wood in probably 10% of the time it took to construct it out of paper. It's just ridiculous. So, I'm looking forward to designing my own clock from scratch. But first we're going to finish this one. And then the last question about this clock that I have not answered yet, that I still need to come up with an answer, is where the cuss am I going to hang it? Where am I going to put this clock when I'm done? I'd like to put it in my living room, but I don't have enough space anywhere to put it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I've already got one in my bedroom. It could go in the kitchen, but I've already got a clock in the kitchen. I don't know. This is just a scrap piece of wood to help me see that the minute hand is working. It was also proof that the clock is half speed. Fantastic. Okay, have a good day.